The hard right. I'll try to remember the words it's gonna get. Oh, there's Michael. Chicago Bear hat on.
Oh, okay. You have the recordings on? The recordings? Okay, I'm gonna call this public hearing to order. It is 6 p.m. at Town Hall, Thursday, December 5th, 2024. The purpose of this public hearing is to discuss the 2025 proposed budget. And so I will entertain any questions or comments on the proposed budget. John?
On the front page here, this, down, it says Harbor Commission minus 425,000. And then it says proposed any balance is still minus 425,000. I thought the Harbor Commission paid back that money to the town.
Then there was the 450,000 that was the loan that the town made. That town did initially put 400,000 in that has not been repaid. But the 450 has. The 400,000 was done initially when the Harbor Commission was set up. So that's what that is showing there, is it's 425,000 right now. That includes probably some payroll that hasn't been repaid, but that 450,000 loan was paid.
Yes, I can listen.
Is it a magnet for a stick on?
Okay, you guys.
Any other questions or comments?
Question under expenditures,
Go ahead.
talks about conservation / development.
Mhm.
There's planning and zoning, 204,000, committee, 134,000. I understand that.
Yeah, the 204,000, that is actually 157,500 of that is what we pay of the accommodation tax to the Chamber of Commerce. And so that shows up under zoning because they are the ones that issue the short-term rental permits. And then the 134,000 is for the Energy Committee, and that's the town's share of the ESB microgrid. John, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I'm just wondering for the 134,000 for the microgrid, did they mention how long it was going to take for that microgrid to pay back the town if it's any of these savings? Anybody ask about that?
It's not really an energy savings, it's a resiliency. It's to provide a place on the island that will have really reliable power if there is ever a long-term power outage here. If the grid goes down, the ESB will still, because it's going to be a combination of solar power, so that it'll have the passive solar, the PV, and then it will have battery that can be used when the when the sun's not out. And then it will also have a generator that can both back up the batteries, and if the batteries are depleted, can on its own run the ESB.
Have a generator with the ESP building?
We do, but it's
So this is like double?
well, this is completely a much more green, and this is why the state's supporting it, is because it's not using the hydrocarbons that the generator itself would use.
So it's not really green because you have to have mining to get the material to do the solar panels and batteries.
Any other questions or comments? Jim?
Is the town looking at not only raising the levy by 5%, but also doing some borrowing?
Yes, and we were, last year, we had budgeted to borrow 453,000, and we haven't borrowed any of that at this point yet. So that's partly why we have to borrow next year, is to we didn't borrow this year. We used cash to make all of our capital purchases. We had planned this year to borrow money for the capital expenditures, but we ended up not needing to borrow. We did deplete our cash a bit. So our thinking is next year, we're going to need to use borrowing to pay for a lot of the capital expenditures.
So what's the town borrowing capacity right now?
Well, it's 5% of our equalized assessed value. I think that we are probably within about $2 million of our borrowing ability.
And how much of that has already been used for, like, with the Harbor Committee?
Oh, no, our borrowing ability is closer to 19 million. And I'm taking out what has been borrowed for the Harbor Commission. So that's been about 12 million, I think, roughly. And then we had maybe 13 million. Then we had existing debt of about 2 million. So right around up to 2 million is left of that 19 million.
So right now, if something came up, the town could borrow 2 million?
Yes. More, I mean, that's not the exact number, Jim, but
That's,
it's in that ballpark. Any other comments? Okay, I don't see it.
Okay.
Okay, Michael,
So,
is that you?
yeah, so Glenn, on the borrowing question, if I'm reading the proposal correctly, you're planning on borrowing 442,000. There's 268,000 in capital expenditures. What's the rest of the borrowing going to be used for? Hello?
Yep, I'm taking a look at that. That's a good question, Michael. It may be covering some things that aren't in the capital budget that are in the operating budget. Unfortunately, Lauren is not here, so I don't know. I can't answer that with much precision.
Okay, second question. I noticed that in 2024 and in 2025, we were budgeting for 225,000 in accommodation tax revenue. Through October report, there's only 95,000 that has been brought in. Do we know why there's such a wide gap? I mean, the vast majority of that money comes in by the end of October.
Yeah, it's supposed to come in by the end of October. This year, a huge chunk, over 100,000, came in November.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Yes, it was very good to hear.
And then I don't see anything in this budget that is a contingency to pay off Harbor Commission commitments or debt at the end of the year if that becomes necessary. Obviously, there was 1.2 million that was borrowed to set up a reserve fund to pay off debt requirements. About let's say roughly half of that was paid this week, not quite half of that. So you've got about 660,000 in reserve funds left. There's about 1.4 million in debt due in 2025. So less than half of, essentially you're going to wipe out the reserve and you're going to have to pay more than half of the debt out of operating. And what I heard this morning from the Harbor Commission is they're projecting a deficit in 2025. So what's the plan for covering the responsibility of the debt payments? And I don't see any contingency in the town budget to handle that in next December, when you could be owing $780,000 or so.
Sure. And I think the Harbor Commission, if you had sat through the whole meeting, you probably would have heard that there's been discussion about an increase in tariffs and a substantial increase in tariffs for next year.
Both there.
Boat fair, yeah. Any other questions, comments? That's Eric.
I'm Eric Eloff, living community full time.
Okay.
Do you guys separate out revenues for the ferry now, not the town ferry? What's it looking like? How's it in terms of revenue and expense?
Yeah, the year's not over yet, but it's looking like they're probably running at about 94% of budgeted revenue. And a little less than that on budgeted expenses. So they're coming very close to the budget number. But as was pointed out, they did end up or did start out the year with, from closing, substantial reserve balances, so they can weather, small amounts of unforeseen expenses and deficits.
Then do you think, just as a follow-up for the 26 budget, you just sort of a line item out, very revenue, very expense?
Yeah, it doesn't show up really on the town budget. The Harbor Commission has a separate budget that they're actually still in the midst of working on. That budget has to be approved by the town board before the end of this year. And that will include potential fare increases to, as pointed out, that may be needed for debt service.
And so today, technically, who owns the ferry line?
The town.
Okay.
Well, the town through the Harbor Commission. I mean, the Harbor Commission is sort of a creature of the town. John?
There's gonna be a raise in the boat fees. I thought the ferry line made money. And so it's not making money right now, so we're gonna need to raise boat fees.
Oh, it's operating profit is, strong, but we have debt service. We, borrowed virtually all of the money to make the purchase.
I guess my second question would be, to raise the boat tariffs, means it's gonna be more money for people to go back and forth. How does that go with, for affordable housing for people? The town also has an affordable housing committee, so to bring people over here, if you're gonna raise it to $12 a trip, how does that make it feasible for the affordable housing committee?
The focus for the Harbor Commission is on paying the debt, operating the ferry line, and having service that the islanders need. I don't think that they are focused too much on the housing. Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, can you remind us what was the debt? Ferry line?
Well, we paid $17,321,000 for it, with all of the fees, closing fees and whatnot, appraisal, legal fees. I think we borrowed somewhere north of 18 million.
And that's the amount we're paying down over time.
Yes.
Did someone project about 20 years?
Oh, yeah, we had Ayler's Public Finance firm did all of the projections for the Harbor Commission, and yeah. Mhm. Any other questions?
So Glenn, again, you talked about increasing the fares, and Ayler's had projected a 6% increase each year in fare revenue, but that would bring only about $300,000, which would still leave, based on your projections this morning, over $400,000.
They're actually talking about raising, and this is preliminary, but looking at raising the passenger fee by 1/3. So from $9 each way to $12 each way. And they're going to try to minimize that increase with respect to the frequent users, mag card users. Any other comments or questions? John?
So basically, you put the Harbor Commission to put more of a strain on the people who live here. Who listen to the town board and say, buying a ferry line is a good thing. It's not gonna go on your tax base, but instead of going on tax, we're gonna end up paying more money to go across rather than be taxing us.
The bulk of this increase is going to be borne by the people who visit here and not by the people who live here.
We live here.
No, I live here year-round too, John. Any other questions? Paul?
Most of the ferry, are you figuring the fact that these boats are older in the hills and that you're gonna have to do an upgrade to an icebreaker one of these years, if you get all electric, be it some kind of a Soviet Coast Guard nuclear powered cast off or something? I mean, the Nitchwood and the Queen are getting older by the year. They're not gonna last forever. Is there something in case something goes tits up? Are you gonna have to come in real quick and buy a $15-20 million ferry boat like that so you have service in the winter?
That is not the plan. The plan, though, is that we are going to be applying for federal and state assistance, particularly when it comes to replacing the ferry boats. We did put in a request to the EPA for $30 million. We did not get that to build an electric ferry boat that would also be an icebreaker, but we will pursue every opportunity that we have to get federal and state assistance on that.
What did Trump will give us?
Any other questions or comments? John?
One last question. If the people here decide to vote against you guys raising tax levy, will you go back to the board and try and cut the costs, or will you just borrow what the difference is, and then we'll end up paying the interest fees on that?
I don't know what the town board would plan to do. I guess we'll have to see what the public does. Paul?
Well, you remember that one year, Cam Ross was on the board, townspeople voted down the levy, and they had to go back, and everyone got cut a certain percentage, so it's all equal pain across the board. It wasn't a case of, well, the taxpayers didn't want to have an increase, so okay, we'll just go out and borrow money, and then you're paying for it anyway. Didn't happen then, but it did happen a few years ago.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
If I could make a comment on the ferry revenue, just
Go ahead, Evan.
being on the commission. In 2026, we will be open to collecting money from the state, I believe it's the state, through the federal ferry boat program of around $300,000 to $400,000. So this upcoming year is just going to be a little bit of a struggle, and then once we get into 2026, we'll be certain to benefit from being a public utility.
So you're saying this 2025 might be a burden, but things are gonna be looking up in 26 and thereafter.
Yes, hopefully, because of the timeline of when the ferry was purchased, we missed out on being able to apply for federal funds for 2025, but we'll be able to collect them in 2026.
Well, and just throwing this out, and then we put you on the spots for it. If the rates go up to $9 to $12 each way next year, you get this money, does that mean the rates will then go down a little, or are they gonna stay the same?
They'll probably, if anything, stay the same, so we can continue to pay debt.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving to the next agenda. I will call this special town meeting of the town of LaPointe to order. It is 6:20 p.m. on Thursday, December 5th, 2024. And the first item on the agenda is compensation modification to the town clerk and treasurer's wages. I asked that be on there As maybe most of you know, we now have had a second treasurer resign, probably due to the workload for the amount that is paid. The pay is probably about $12 an hour right now. And the clerks in a better condition. Frankly, the treasurer's situation, we were very fortunate for many years to have a treasurer who took this on as basically a hobby. And so during that 20 years, I'm not sure that the treasurer's wage went up much at all. It's currently $907.50 a month for about 18 hours a week of work. The clerks was last changed a few years ago. That has gotten more burdensome with a lot of special meetings. And so as maybe all of you know, modifications to the elected officials' pay can only happen at a town meeting or a special town meeting. And so this is the opportunity for the townspeople to increase the wages for the town clerk and the treasurer. I'm going to entertain any comments, questions. Michael?
Yeah, I watched, like everybody else, we've had 3 treasurers in 2 years. And prior to that, it really was like a hobby, thought of as sort of a public service. But this is a job that does require real work, and increasingly so because the town's having complicated finances, more complicated than it certainly was in the past. So 18 hours a week seems to be what's in demand now, but sometimes it goes higher. If you do the math on that today, the treasurer's making about $11 and something cents an hour. And that's, in my opinion, woefully inadequate if we want to secure the interest of capable people to do this tricky job. So I don't know if you want to do a motion, but I would propose that it move from roughly $12 an hour to $25 an hour, assuming the 20-hour work week.
So I don't think we have an hourly, so we'll have to come up with that amount would be on a monthly basis.
A little bit less than $2,000 a month. It's like, it'd be like $1,900.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, a motion is on the floor to increase the treasurer's pay from $907.50 a month to $1,900 a month. This would be effective with the new term for the treasurer, which the treasurer is up for election in April. So it would be whoever gets elected to that position come April would get that new amount. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question of the motion maker, is that amount like a sort of commensurate with what a treasurer would make on the mainland for a city our size?
I don't know. I do know that if you put it in sort of an island perspective, in this island, people who own lawns and clean houses get $25 an hour. It is a scalable thing. But the point is, history is telling us that this is a demanding job. It really is. The person who did it, who sort of defined it, was a real pro and loved it and was able to do it with great economy and with actually a certain amount of joy. But there is now, if we want to get someone to really commit to this and to stick with it, which we haven't been able to do for the past couple of years, we're going to have to. And I don't think $25 an hour for a real skilled finance job is out of line. I think, I'm guessing, but I bet you it's on the low end of the towns around.
Any other discussion?
Are we also raising the clerk's wage to be around that 25 an hour range?
Well, we can have a separate motion on that.
But
Right now, we were voting on, the motion is on the treasurer's wage only. Any other discussion on the treasurer's wage? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. Noted. You've got that, Alex? Motion carries, and thank you. I think that will make finding a good treasurer much easier. As it stands right now, our current treasurer has given notice and will be leaving us the end of January after the tax bills are all processed and paid. I would like to make a motion that we increase the town clerk pay from the current amount, which is $1,870 per month, by $300 a month to $2,170. I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is a rationale.
Yeah, the clerk works probably about 10% more than the treasurer in terms of the weekly hours. Probably more like 20 hours on average a week. And if you use that same $25 rule of thumb, it comes out with that extra $300 a month. Any other questions or comments?
I got a question. I mean, how, I'm in favor of it, but how will that, then will we have to go back and adjust the budget to pay for the treasurer and the clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
So what does that bring the annual salary for both positions to?
The annual salary, give me a minute here. 2,170 times 12. 26,040 for the clerk.
8.
And 22,800 for the treasurer. Any other comments?
So about 50,000 combined.
That is correct.
And are they subject to payroll taxes?
Yes.
Okay, so that would also increase 7.5%, et cetera. Okay.
Correct. Correct. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consider the adoption of resolution by the town endorsing a town board resolution 2024-1119, which proposes that the town levy exceed the state allowable levy limit under sections 66.0602 of the Wisconsin statutes, specifically a proposed tax levy, which would increase the allowable limit by 5% to $2,069,155. Is there a motion to endorse that resolution? It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I would like to point out that even though this 5% will be obviously an increase, as it turns out this year, the town's allocation of the school levy and the county levy is actually going to go down from what it was last year. And the schools by more than what the town's levy would go up by. So the overall tax burden for the entire town between the school, the county, and the town should be less than it was last year. So with that in mind, I'll entertain any comments on the resolution. Jim?
I have a question and I'd like to hear each board member reply. Why they think this is the best way to solve the problem after you've gone through all the budget hearings and trying to balance the budget, and obviously it didn't happen. Why do you feel that this is the best way to correct that? Because it wasn't balanced.
Well, I personally feel like we have asked all the department heads to do the best they can to not spend money this year and not have our expenditures be so great. And we just can't find the ways to they can't find the ways to lessen their bills.
And Jim, I'd like to add to that, you know, as you all know, we haven't had a town administrator now for 5 months. We've gone through this budget process basically without a town administrator. And I think there's a reluctance on my part, I think maybe the rest of the board, to make significant cuts that would enable us not to have an increase in the levy when we've got a new town administrator starting in 2 weeks. So I would, I think some of that is just not wanting to make decisions for the town administrator that might not be what they would cut or what they would propose cutting.
And I just got something to add. You know, if you think about the town departments and the services they provide, and if you'd have to take any of those services away, one day, not even a day, just a morning on a Saturday when the MRF didn't open, we never heard the end of it. And everybody was all upset over it and the power went out. Mother Nature caused the MRF to shut down for a couple hours. Could you imagine if they shut down for a couple of days? I mean, that's, you know, we're taking away the services. Sure, we could save money by taking away the services, but we'll never hear the end of it. So that's what we got to think about when we're trying to adjust the budget.
And part of it is we are giving 2.5% raises, cost of living raises across the board. So,
And
you
a
know,
couple of
that's,
merit raises.
yeah, and some merit raises, but that 2.5%, I mean, that's a big chunk of that 5% increase.
That's what I was gonna speak about is the cost of living is, in a way, we all agreed it was incredibly important to not cut. In regards to each individual department too, they do their diligence to create a budget that was as minimum as it could be. And then reiterating what Glenn said about the countywide, the school levy, with our taxes going down in that regard, we feel that increase a little less this year than we would have the previous year.
To kind of add on to that, I agree. It's funny, Sam always says what I'm about to say, but the cost of living has also increased. You know, we've seen gas prices and food prices and things like that. So we wanted to give the cost of living, but we also were presented from the department heads excellent over-the-top service to the town. And then sometimes in very quick, you know, this person's sick, we need someone to change. We've had some turnovers, people have stood up to take the job. So there were some merit increases also given because they were deserved, and that's why they're called merit.
Thank you.
Sure. And John, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess maybe the town could, instead of, it's great, and I just want to point out, it's not a raise plan. The COLA, because I got corrected many times, that it's not a raise, it's a
Right.
cost.
Right.
Maybe the town could cut back on special interest projects, like the ESB solar array, and maybe concentrate more on giving closer to keeping the town on budget and doing the what you need versus the what you want.
Thank you, John. Any other comments? Paul?
You talk about the cost of living raise for employees. Well, just remember, inflation's going up for everyone, even people in the private sector that don't get cost of living raises. I brought this up last winter. Felt in deaf ears, I'll bring it up again to now. If this is a nearly snowless winter, are you still gonna have a full crew on the road staff? Basically, I'm sorry, doing nothing. You're not plowing snow. I brought it up at the last meeting. You have the deep water apparatus doing all the maintenance work. The fire trucks and the ambulances billing at 150 an hour. If you've got a mechanic on staff, why don't they do it? I mean, you gotta look at this. If you guys on the inside looking out, you gotta maybe go out pound the pavement a little bit, see what's going on and see if there's a cheaper way of doing something that still gets the job done.
Thank you,
When you
Paul.
brought up the plowing, I did ask the foreman and he said that we had plenty of work for our town crew to be doing, that they weren't sitting around. That they did.
Well, I'm just saying, is if it's the case, there's nothing going on, as I said last year, maybe out of a 4 or 5 member crew, maybe this week, so-and-so's laid off. The next week, so-and-so's laid off. It's a shared pain, let's say, because if there's nothing to do, I'll tell you, when my uncle worked for the county, if there wasn't a snow plow, he didn't get paid. So him, his wife, and his kids were eating a lot of venison from the freezer and doing a lot of ice fishing.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is to approve the 2024 total town tax levy to be collected in 2025 pursuant to section 60.101A of the Wisconsin statutes. And again, it is for that $2,069,155 amount. We have to vote on it twice. There has to be a separate vote to actually say we're okay to exceed it. So we had the vote that says it's okay to exceed it. Now we actually have to take a vote and set that as the amount. So is there a motion to set that as the levy amount? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
So you're talking about the 2,069,000.
$2,069,155. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 1 nay. Motion carries. Next item, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have a Town of LaPointe Special Town Board meeting. We will call to order at 6:37. And I'll take a roll call. Mike Anderson.
Here.
Amy Baxter.
Here.
Susan Brenna.
Here.
Samantha Dobson.
Here.
And Glenn Carlson here. The first item that we have is to hire a new town administrator. We are going to go into closed session on that, so I would entertain a motion that we defer that until after item 3.
I'll make a, we hire town administrator to after number 3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now we are at discuss and finalize the 2025 budget for the tax levy just approved by the townspeople. First item is a general fund budget. Is there a motion to adopt the 2025 general fund budget as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 general fund budget as amended, as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just think that when there was the question of where we are going to get treasurer and clerk money, Peter had offered not to get all that gravel.
That is true.
So I think that we can take it out of the gravel money. It's a good call.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 2025 designated fund budgets. I don't know if we have those.
Yeah.
Our current schedule of fees and.
Pretty sure.
Designated funds,
Yeah.
okay. So is there a motion to defer items B and C, the schedule of fees and the designated fund budgets? We'll take that up at our meeting on the 19th.
I'll make a motion to defer 3B and 3C to our next board meeting.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on to hire town administrator. We have interviewed, the town board has interviewed, the staff have interviewed a finalist for this position. Does the board wish to go into closed session to discuss this hiring?
I don't have to.
We don't need to discuss.
Okay, you all received a copy of the proposed contract.
Yes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion that the town hire Ralph Max Imholt as town administrator at a salary of $90,000 a year. And terms consistent with the terms of the prior town administrator.
A second.
Any discussion?
The employment agreement, is that,
Once we approve that, I'll sign the
Okay.
employment agreement. And I have discussed it with Max and he is fine with those terms. The other discussion? All in favor, say,
Max saw this.
yeah. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And Max, I understand, is going to start, his first day will be the 19th of December. So praise be. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion we adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.